Okay, good evening and thanks for joining us. This painting is for Chris Braide's album Celestial Songs, and Chris Braide's band is DBA for Downs Braide Association. And one other thing I'd like to say tonight before I start is I have an exhibition on right now at Trading Boundaries. The exhibition is open to the public. I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, not Monday and Tuesday. It'll be open fully when their restaurant is open fully, but it is actually open. If all you want to do is have a cup of tea and see the paintings, you can go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll give you an update on that, but it's open now and we will rotate the pictures. So sometime tonight I might finish this, in which case I'll get it photographed and I'll take it over there so you can come and see the original. There will be a few paintings no one's seen, and there'll be a few paintings that no one's seen for a very long time. So, and there'll be some prints nobody's seen. So there will be new stuff. Anyway, that is on now, and it will be on probably through the year, with not the same pictures though. We'll keep changing the pictures. So as I say, this will be there too, probably from next week. And as for next week, this will be finished and out of the way. I don't know what we're going to be doing next week because we have a meeting tomorrow to decide that. So here we go. I haven't got much to do on this really. I haven't lit the trees, so I've got to do that. There's a couple of figures here, 3, and I think I'd like to put more around the rocks. Tidy up the stars and the fireflies into the night sky. A few little things to do, but then it's done. So because I talk too much, I may not finish while we're actually live, but I will finish in a half hour or so afterwards. So that's where we are now, and I'm just going to start putting a lighter side on the trees. This brush, by the way, is a very old, it looks chewed up, but it isn't. It's a bristle brush, and it's sort of worn out, but it's ideal for doing things where I want to be imprecise, like the edge of the trees. I'm wondering why I can't see that. The answer is I'm not wearing my glasses. Excuse me a second. Mystery solved. Aha, there it is.
Trading Boundaries is a music venue as well, isn't it, Roger?
It's a music venue. They had Jan Ackerman of Focus playing there 3 days straight this weekend. They had Curved Air with Sonia Christensen last week. Yeah, they've got a lot of people there. They usually have a band most weekends.
Oh, wow.
I think they've got the Supremes playing there in the autumn.
So you can listen to music, eat cake and look at your paintings.
Well, you know, actually,
trio.
You have an option when you go to the concerts to have a full-on meal, or just to stand and, snacks and drinks. So, there are options. I'm cheating. I'm resting my brush with my finger because I've got my glasses. The ones that were missing were actually in my hand. I've got the paint pot in this hand, but as I've shown before, the traditional way of painting like that is to rest your hand on one of these, and it's good too because it can help you guide the brush as well as
Has the change to the Yes tour this year affected your plans?
I don't think this was a good year to have plans.
Well, that goes for the last 2 years, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Yes, everything's changed and changing. I'm going to join the band in England because that's all the dates that are fixed at this moment. So what else happens, I don't know. So we're going to take some paintings and prints on tour with them around England. We did that in America and it was great fun. It was really great travelling with the band. I'm leaning right across the picture, so there's not much you can see. I might just leave this till later, might as well.
I've just moved my mic because apparently I was a bit quiet, so I'm probably really loud now.
Aren't actresses supposed to be able to throw their voice?
Exactly, I mean I can do that too, I just don't want to deafen everyone. Don't want to upstage you, Roger.
All too easy. Don't worry about that. So what happened last week? Are you going to tell us?
Oh, so much. Yeah, lots of creeping around churches and graveyards in the dark. 'Cause I always wondered, actually, as an actor, I thought, if you're filming a horror film, do you spend the whole time feeling scared and on edge, the way you do when you're watching a horror film? Turns out the answer is yes, if you're filming in a creepy graveyard at night.
So where was this creepy graveyard?
In the middle of nowhere, in sort of Ipswich land.
Right.
Really near nothing. You know, nobody can hear you scream, that sort of thing.
And it was spooky.
Very spooky, very atmospheric.
So, but did you have fun?
I did have fun, thank you.
There you go. And when is the film coming out? And what can you tell us about it?
I probably can't tell you that much other than it's very scary and Christmas themed. And I think it'll be out near Christmas.
Ah, okay. So as soon as you know the title and the dates, we should put it on the website.
I was like, oh, thank you. Oh, gosh. Maybe I'll watch a preview first.
Don't be so bashful.
Roger, are there any notable music artists whose offers to do art you had to decline? You said no to anyone.
Has anyone asked me to do a cover where I've said no? Is that what the question is?
Yes.
The answer is I can't really think of that ever happening. The nearest thing to that happening was earlier this year. I had an inquiry from Anne Wilson's manager, Anne Wilson of Heart, and she asked if I could do a cover. And I thought, great, yes. But in the time scale that she wanted it, I had to say, I didn't think I could do one in that time slot. So what we did is she had a look at the paintings I've got that haven't been used. And fortunately for me, and I hope for her, she chose a painting that I really liked, that had never been seen. And I think in the end it made a great and very relevant cover. But that was happenstance, and that was good. So, yeah, yes, I do. I must admit, it always is a bit difficult saying no. But I usually only say no for reasons of no time, not because I don't want to do it. And I don't know what to say really, other than I guess people should ask me earlier in the process. Then I would have to say no much less often. I did a cover which I really loved doing for White Willow, And that, they did ask me at Nearfest. No, it wasn't at Nearfest. I forget where it was. And it did take quite a long time to get done, but in the end it was great. And the painting was called Archipelago. I don't have a brush in my hand. Aha, there's the one I want, looking there. So the answer is, it happens, but more often than not because of timing. So we have a tree here which kind of disappears, so I need to highlight it. The moonlight or whatever it is falling on this side.
There's a question here I don't fully understand. You're being asked if you're the one that painted the CD introduction on the cartoon from the 80s and 90s. Now I don't think this specifies which cartoon, so if that lovely viewer could clarify. Have you ever painted for a cartoon, Roger?
No, that doesn't mean to say my work hasn't been used for one. The only thing I could say is not that I'm aware of, and therefore not officially.
Have you ever used more than one medium on the same painting?
I have, and run into all kinds of trouble as a consequence. So I tend not to do it now. But in the early years I did. I would do, Relaya, for example, has got watercolour in the background and ink in the foreground. And the ink is more fugitive than the oil. So at some early point I reworked into the ink with acrylic, which stabilised and brightened it up. And I did that because the ink jumps out at you and the watercolour drifts back. So you get a great sense of aerial perspective without even having to work at it, just by using different medium. But now I would rather work at it and be consistent with the medium.
Have you ever made anything for a horror movie? Like a poster or a logo?
Well, what a weird question. The answer is yes. Years ago, I had a friend who was a producer and director called Howard Brandy, and he made a film for Hammer, for Michael Carreras at Hammer Horror. You know, the studios that made all the Hammer horrors. And the film he made was Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. There you go. Really sophisticated stuff. But
awesome. Sounds like my kind of horror movie.
You may have been about to say sounds awful. But he asked me if I would do it, and he was a friend, so I said yes. I can't say the result was something I really enjoyed doing, and it was pretty much an appalling cliche, really. So the least said about that, the better, I guess. But the answer is it was a funny experience being around the Hammer studios, because Michael Carreras, who owned Hammer and was the boss at the time, he was the son of the founder of Hammer. He looked at one of my paintings. He said, "Oh, have you got the script for that painting? We'll make that film." And I was with my brother, and we looked at each other, and he started nodding, and I said, "Well, no, I haven't got a script for it, but my brother has." And he said, "We'll write it tonight."
I love that can-do attitude. It's what you need to make it in the movies, Roger. Always say yes.
Well, yes.
Did your brother write that script?
I don't know if he did or didn't, actually. I can't remember.
The movie didn't get made.
The movie never got made.
What a shame.
It's absolutely.
Is there any further news on the Secret Path book?
No, we're still aiming to try to get it out in the autumn. That would be my ambition. That is my ambition. Yeah, a lot of things happening in that area, so I'm going to still try and do that. We have a couple of other book projects too, which I'm hoping will happen and in a similar sort of time frame.
Can you tell us a bit more about those?
I'm hoping, yeah, in the next few weeks I should have enough information to be able to talk about them.
Ooh, well, that's just intriguing now.
Wow, intriguing it has to be for the moment.
We're on the edge of our seats.
The thing is, you know, mostly when I'm doing an album cover, it's not a big secret. In fact, everyone wants to know about it and talk about it. But a lot of other projects do tend to be, unfortunately, the client or partners in them want them to be secret until they're ready to promote, which means the project has to get beyond at least the stage where it might be cancelled or interrupted in some way. So embryonic projects tend to be not talked about, and in the end I guess I have a lot of those that end up in books but without the project happening. It's, yeah, I you know, when I'm working with people who are doing a lot of experimental stuff that won't happen or will very hard to make it happen, but they're often very exciting. We often get paid to do the work too. It's not as if we don't get paid, but often the projects don't happen for all kinds of reasons. But yeah.
I once got cast in an advert and paid for the whole day of shooting, and then that scene just was never in the advert. So there we go. I mean, I won't say I let it, you know, let it affect me too much. Not too many tears were shed.
Good. It's, yeah, those things happen, that's it. I have a wonderful anecdote which amused me no end. I was working with a lot of artists who were working in basically science fiction area, and there were, at the same time, I was working with Sid Mead, who was designing a lot of things for real. And we were working with companies doing a lot of the very early work in computer games. And at that time, we saw that Hornby Trains, which was a model train company in England, every country seems to have their own, and they had run into difficulties and there was a management buyout. And we had a connection there. We had several meetings with them, and we proposed to them the idea of using the same kind of incredible detail that they have on a model train to build a space station with a monorail and stuff like that. And it's something you can add to. You can add accommodation pods, you can add all kinds of stuff. And in addition, you could have it connected to a computer game. So you could play games and have the model for real. And the idea, there was a lot of enthusiasm for the idea, and we did a lot of work on it. And I was asking Sid Mead if he would be interested in working out a system whereby the units connected that looked convincing and real. And he did some great stuff on it. But unfortunately, the management buyout failed, and there was another one. And anyway, in the end, the project just faded away, and they focused in on trains. And years later, I was at a conference in San Francisco. I was sitting on the Presidential Board of Advisors to the Academy of Art there with Sid Mead. And Sid said to me, so whatever happened to that space station project? So I told him what happened, and he looked at me and he said, Roger, you never told me it was a toy. So he thought it was somebody's wild ambition to build one for real.
Wow.
But those sort of things did happen. He did do projects that were huge. We both actually got involved in some very huge projects on the same projects, which never happened. Okay, I am thinking I've done this to a large extent. I might add some more trees, but I might, you know, in the quiet of the night, sit and stare at it before I commit, and then I might say, yeah, that's it, it's done.
Do you ever contemplate it for a while, decide it's done, and then change your mind after it's been?
Yeah. If a painting like this one, which has been in my studio, it's been in my studio since 1985, and gets painted and then left and painted and left and painted and left. I don't do a lot of work on it, but I think if I'm next week, that's probably what I'll be working on, that particular picture. So that has never been finished. So that doesn't really answer your question. But I do, yes, for several reasons. One obvious one is a painting might get damaged. You know, cat walks across it. That's notoriously has happened. To a watercolour, so its footprints mattered. They would be much less problem if they walked across an acrylic painting, but on the other hand, they tend to be stored vertical and much less likely. The other thing is I changed my mind about where some detail been niggling me, and I fix it, paint it out, trees appear, trees disappear. It's a movable feast. If I could film my paintings from the beginning of their life to when I finally part with them, many of them would change. And it is my thought that they change for the better. Occasionally I redo them rather than change them, but not so often.
Have you seen Deborah Anderson's photos for Women of the White Buffalo, which is regarding missing or murdered Indigenous women? Have you seen those, and do you have any thoughts on art for causes?
I haven't seen any of those, but is the question on there so I can look it up later?
Potentially, and just if you have any general thoughts, I guess, on when art is for a cause or, you know, serves to bring attention to an issue like that.
Yes, why not? Art is a means of communication that can communicate very powerfully. The right art in the right place, absolutely, yes, for a cause, yes. I've just done a painting for a group called Blue Planet Alliance, and the person who set that up was Hank, who I've worked with for many, many years. And Hank is very committed to issues concerning global warming and weaning us all off fossil fuels. And I did a painting for him called Blue Planet. It's a print. Actually, I have it here. I will show you. So that is a painting for a cause, if my lead allows me. So this isn't the painting, but this is a print. And I did a set of certificates, designed for certificates for, it's called the Blue Planet Alliance. and I did these prints for it, and I'm not quite sure what the prints are for. I mean, obviously they are for people who want them, but is that whether it's a means of raising money or whether it's a rewarding significant effort in that direction? The certificates were definitely for organizations that had made major contributions to ending global warming. So yeah, I think, yes, art does do well when it serves a cause. I think it's a good idea. But I don't know the cause that you're talking about, and I'll look it up.
We'll definitely look it up. There's some discussion. I think it either is or will become a movie, and there's a website and things, so we'll have a look.
Yeah, yeah.
Roger, how many projects do you tend to have on the go at once?
Well, the question is, how many projects that are actually live and storming towards a deadline do I have at once? And projects that fit into that category, probably only 2 or 3 at any given time. But projects that I'm hoping to do that are for fun, for myself, projects like the Secret Path book, if I count those in as well, I could have 10 or 20 projects at any given time. That's probably an understatement, but I'm not working on them all full time. I'm working on them intermittently, but when it comes to paintings, usually 2 or 3.
Brilliant. Roger, can you explain NFTS?
No, but I know what it stands for, which is not the same thing as explaining it. It means non-fungible tokens. And what non-fungible means is non-divisible. So, and that's not a literal translation. So if you have a $5 bill, you can change it for $5 or 10 50-cent pieces. They're equivalents. But a non-fungible token is a token that has no equivalency. It's a unique piece and it stands on its own and has no. It has a value that is fluid. I don't think that's an explanation, but it's a kind of a fairly dodgy translation. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm just staring at the camera and answering questions today rather than painting.
That's fine.
I should get on with my work, I guess.
Have you ever had an embarrassing moment in an art shop?
Of course not. What are you talking about?
Roger's never been embarrassed.
Well, I was going to say I've never been in an art shop.
Flawless human being. Oh, that's probably more on point.
I don't know. I can think of 1,000 shops where you're more likely to have an embarrassing moment. No, not really. Not that I can remember. I do remember being totally mortified in my first week at art school. I've repeated this story too often, but I started art school, I don't know if it's I forget now, but something like the 5th or 6th of September 1961. So I was 4 or 5 days beyond my 17th birthday. And, you know, the first thing we all ushered into one room, one big studio, and we were all supposed to draw and paint a naked lady. And I found it horrifically embarrassing.
Oh God, you must have been dying of embarrassment.
It was, yeah, it was. I didn't know how to deal with it. Well, you know, you get used to it after a while, but not after a day. More like after months. And the weird thing was, to really exacerbate the situation, the principal walked in and asked if there was anyone in the room called Dean, and I put my hand up and he said, I need to talk to you in my office. And I thought, oh my God, I shouldn't have been here. So I go into his office and he says, you shouldn't be in there. He said, you're supposed to be doing industrial design. Well, I had no idea. I didn't apply to do industrial design. I had no idea that art schools were divided into subjects, actually. I thought you did everything or anything, whatever took your fancy.
Oh, so you just wandered into an art lecture or an art
No,
class?
that's where I was directed.
Ah.
But here is the irony. All the fine art students stopped doing academic training, including life drawing. It was only the industrial designers that carried on doing academic painting, drawing and life drawing. So, yeah.
Ah. Oh, there's now lots more discussion going on about NFTs, which I just assumed was an art thing. It's not an art thing at all, as is now very clear. So there we go.
It kind of is. It's a kind of cryptocurrency that seems to have focused in on artists. I did it once. I didn't know what it was. I was invited to do it. It was economically successful, but I'm not sure there's a lot of concern about things like that because they take a lot of energy to make, so a lot of people think they're very bad for the planet. Although in recent years that's changed a lot, but it hasn't changed completely. Yeah, I guess it is, to a very large degree, a lot of art is about being a currency. I would say if you go to a major fine art auction at Sotheby's or Christie's, a lot of people are buying for investment purposes, not because they love the work. I think people buying art because they love it, it's a different thing altogether. And it's fascinating for me, that difference. People who buy something in the hope that for the following year it might be worth twice as much, and not the same people who buy pictures or paintings or art in general because they absolutely feel they can't live without it. So it's interesting. It's interesting experiencing that. And obviously, from an egotistical point of view, it's very different too. It feels much nicer as an artist that someone has bought your picture because they think it will add to their life rather than to their bank account. I mean, from their point of view, it's probably good if it does both, but what I would like to think is that people buy them because they love them. For many years, I never sold my paintings. So for probably the first 30 years of my career, I never sold original paintings. And I used to get asked often, why not? And I said, because, you know, if I could afford it, these would be the paintings I would buy, which is a very egotistical thing to say. But it was sort of true. I didn't like the idea of parting with them. And then in the end, I had a friend who said, you know what, you keep saying that, but most of your pictures are in storage. So you should think about that. So I did. So we've sold a few now.
Well, it's nice to think of them being enjoyed and being looked at, actually.
Yeah. I mean, my big scheme, which is something we'll talk about specifically, I'm just checking that I'm safe on this, is we would like to build a sort of visitor centre stroke gallery where the pictures can be seen. Whenever I do a show, I remember particularly at the Isle of Man exhibition where I had a free hand to decide the colour of the exhibition hall. We did a dark blue and then lit all the pictures and they really stood out. And they had a lovely space and the pictures fitted in there very well. And I remember going in early in the mornings and just standing there and walking around, being amongst the paintings. And I so loved that. And I would love to do something whereby I could do that. get up every morning and just stand among the paintings. I loved it.
Do you collect other artists, Roger?
I do, yes. I did more in the past, but I do, yeah.
Who do you collect? Who have you got?
I bought a few paintings off Ian Miller, one of Alan Lee's. I bought a lot of comic drawings by Frank Hampson and Frank Bellamy. Whoops. Yeah, I do. But as I say, that was more in the 70s and 80s than I do now.
Is Relaya in storage?
Relaya has been in an exhibition at the Lutheran University in California until about a month ago, and I think it's going to be in my exhibition in San Francisco in the summer. So temporarily it's in storage in America.
Roger, were you surprised to be asked to do the cover for Yes after not doing the previous two albums?
After not doing the previous?
Two albums. The cover for Yes's Drama.
Oh, for Drama. No, that was a no-brainer, really. No. Was I surprised? No. No. It was nice, and I really, really enjoyed getting back working with them. I'm not really sure about the first time. When I did, the first cover I didn't do for them was Going for the One. And I had what I thought was the perfect painting for Going for the One. But when I turned up in Montreux to discuss it with the band, John was painting at an easel. And he said, Roger, this is what I want on the cover. And I thought, well, it's your band, you can do what you like, but I don't want to work with that. And I couldn't really see any way of incorporating it, getting it to be there. I think John had an idea like that for Tales from Topographic Oceans, which for anyone who wants to find it, can find it somewhere on the cover, is a little drawing by John. But I didn't want to do that with Going for the One. So I should have shown it to the rest of the band, but I didn't. So that was my fault. I should have shown it to the rest of the band. But John wasn't doing anything on Drama, so it was a fresh start, really. And I really liked that album. It was Machine Messiah is, one of my favourite Yes albums, Yes tracks. But on the other hand, Gates of Delirium is probably my all-time favourite.
Can we see what you designed for Going for the One?
Yes, the painting that was in my book, which was called Flights, was the painting I did for Going for the One. The first time I ever did a full-on floating islands painting. I'm tethered.
You're tethered. Do you want to give me your tether?
Yes, it is out of reach, so I will.
I'll do a little close-up on the painting while we wait. Oh, we're not going to be waiting long enough. I'll do a close-up at the end.
Can that be seen?
Yes.
Yeah, so this was the painting I did for Going for the One. Now, I said that without this. That
yes,
was the painting I did for Going for the One. Back.
Great. Do you think they'll make a t-shirt out of this painting?
It's not easy. It's very busy all over. Even though these are silhouetted against the sky is very busy too. They might, but I don't know.
It would make a great t-shirt, wouldn't it? I think. Well, as you say, it's very detailed.
Yeah, simple designs tend to work better on t-shirts, I think. But now the paint I'm using here is opaque, but when I'm painting it on black, it doesn't really have the brightness that it should have. So I put layer on and layer and layer and layer on. So it looks like I'm just painting the windows again and again. And I am, but they're gradually becoming more illuminated with each layer. The trick should have been I should have painted it white first, but I still would have needed, even with titanium white, I would have needed several layers. I think this works better as a painting, as a picture, than as a piece of heraldic design. You know, something simple like the first Asia dragon, for example, would have worked very easily. But this is not simple. It takes study.
Mm.
Getting it out there. Yeah, I mean, I might, as I say, work on this for another hour afterwards tonight. But basically, today is it's finished today.
Well, when you're designing the album cover, do you think about the fact that the cover will be square, and do you think about where not to put things that will be disappear into the folds?
No. I always make the painting work as a painting, and pretty much always have. So the cover of the album cover would typically at best have half the painting, but often much less than half. It has to do both. It has to work as a cover and it has to work as a painting, because it exists in both lives. So yeah, no, I don't paint square paintings with the lettering on, but I do like art with lettering. I'm thinking of doing a series of posters as prints because of the lettering. I like that interaction between lettering and painting. I'm going to move across and work on this side.
Mm.
And that's going to be tricky because I'm going to be casting a shadow.
That's okay, we can still see.
Too many ladders in this studio. Ah, a convenient box to sit on. coffee.
Could you give us an update on the house, Roger?
Yes, it's been a long time, not 3/4 of a year since we started work on renovating it, and I keep saying we've pretty much finished the interior and we're working on the exterior, which is about right. That's correct. So when I go out there tomorrow, I'm expecting that apart from a final lick of paint and some detailing, the interior will be finished. There is a bed to be made, there's a front door to be made, but the interior otherwise is finished. But the exterior isn't, so we have to do a number of things on the exterior. We have to finish the skin. It's had a double coat, so it's fully insulated. The floor doesn't have a double coat, so there is a 6-inch air gap in the floor, and that has to be finished. And there are 3 spires and a door canopy and a stairway, all on the exterior to be done. So apart from those, we are further ahead than we were when we finished it last time, all those years ago. So it's had more done to it since. But it still has, I suppose, a couple of months' work on the exterior. And I don't know if we'll go straight on and do that now, or we might pause it till later summer. We will have a discussion about that in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it's going good. There is one snag about actually filming there, because it'd be good to go out there and film again and walk around it, and that is there's no signal in that area.
Oh.
So we could film it, but not live. So maybe that's the thing we'll do. We'll film it and post it, and then we'll answer questions. So we can answer the questions live, but we can't do it live from the thing. When Freya and I were doing it, when she came back just before Christmas, it was not very satisfactory. It was very difficult. We're also waiting, as ever, fingers crossed, that we'll be building one for real in the near future. But that's been happening a while. I'm tweaking this, but I've got to do the figures. I might leave that, but for the moment.
Do you know of any colourblind artists, Roger?
Yeah, Chris Foss was colourblind. He was very funny about it. He had an assistant and his assistant would essentially paint a black painting, fill it with stars, and then have a massive, let's say, yellow blob in the middle. And Chris would do his magic on it. He would turn it from a yellow potato into a very intricate spaceship. But he had no idea that it was yellow. I mean, he would, but this is what he said, but I believed him, yeah. Interesting. But he could draw. He was an incredible draftsman. And he, yeah, he was a brilliant craftsman. Did things people didn't expect. But yeah, he was famous for his spaceships. And they were vivid colours, and basically, he tells me he couldn't see the colours.
It's very interesting, isn't it? In a way, it sounds like it gave him a unique perspective as an artist, or it certainly influenced his perspective in quite a unique way.
Yes. 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 I mean, how do you tell somebody what colour it is you're seeing? Because we don't have a language other than by reference to something. So, you know, you can be very scientific and say what wavelength the colour is, but normally we describe colour relatively. And we recognise colours when they're dramatically different from what they are in bright sunlight, but we still recognise what they are. But it's a very difficult thing for someone to explain if they're seeing something differently. I heard a program on BBC briefly at lunchtime about a museum where they had a water mill moved from its original site to the site of this museum, but it was still running, and the water wheel was inside the middle of the mill. And they explained that it was an over-the-top water wheel. Instead of the water turning it by going underneath, it turned it by going over the top. All that you can explain. But then they said it goes anti-clockwise. And I thought, what on earth do they mean? That the wheel turns anti-clockwise? Because you could stand and look at it and seeing it go like that. You could go to the other side and it's turning clockwise. It makes no sense. You can't describe something by conventions like that without context being critical. And colour is like that. It's very, very dependent on context. You might look at Chris's work and wonder if he was colourblind, but my art teacher asked me that question. Didn't ask me that question, insisted I went and had my eyes tested, because they didn't believe I'd do what I did if I could see the colours. And so I had to go and get my eyes tested, which was, for me, okay, because back then my eyesight was very good and pretty accurate from a colour point of view. So the problem must have been a mental one. Physically, I was painting what I wanted to paint. We've run past our time. If there are no more questions, I'll say thank you very much for joining us today. An odd day. I did very little painting, but I did anticipate it would be pretty much finished, and it is. And as I say, if you care to come and see the original, it will be at Trading Boundaries by the end of the month. It has to be photographed first, and then it'll go to Trading Boundaries.
I'm going to finish with a close-up just on the...
Go for it.
Just
Thank you very much.
As promised.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.